for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. Give me a second here. Okay, not sure where the feedback's coming from. It's probably on my end. Give me a second. Got quite a bit of feedback here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it. Not sure where it would be coming from. Okay, again, welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Now, breaking news is that there is a supposed coup happening right now in Turkey. We have a few different live feeds. I know Tim Pool, he is live streaming from Ankara, Turkey on Periscope right now. The antimedia.org, anti-media, has a live video military coup underway in Turkey, government officials taken hostage. Again, that was at the antimedia.org. I've seen a few other ones. I do have a clip here real quick that I am going to play from We Are Change about this coup that's happening and what might be behind that.
News right now, as we are speaking, there is a coup d'etat occurring inside of Turkey against the Prime Minister Erdogan, who is on vacation. Military have taken to the streets. They have flown military aircraft over the capital of Turkey. All airports are closed, bridges are closed, and military troops with tanks are on the streets. They have just issued a statement to the press inside of Turkey saying that the Turkish armed forces have completely taken over the administration of the country to reinstate constitutional order, human rights, and freedom, the rule of law, and the general security that was damaged. All international agreements are still valid. We hope that all of our good relationships with all countries will continue. Again, this coup d'etat is made against Erdogan, which many people view as a dictator who has abused its powers inside of Turkey. And again, the Turkish government that was thrown out right now is saying that this action is illegal and there will be harsh circumstances, harsh payback, the highest price for this illegal action. As we know, Erdogan has been running the country like a dictator. He has embarked on a large and sinister campaign, destroying his political opponents, jailing hundreds, including journalists, university teachers, military officers, aid workers. Inside of Turkey after she was exposing how the Turkish government was openly financing. restoring human rights, the rule of law, and freedom inside of Turkey. And right now, we are seeing the effects of that unfold right in front of us. Stay tuned on wearechange.org. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are going to be covering all these latest developments. The major key role why I believe this is happening is because Erdogan and Turkey have openly supported radical Islamic terrorists, ISIS, in the country. It's blowing back in their face. They have made enemies with Iran. They have made enemies inside of Russia. They have almost caused a global conflict. And now the military has had enough. We will see the developments, the repercussions from this, but they will be huge. They will be global. We will be covering these important geopolitical news on this YouTube channel. And also, just stay tuned. Subscribe, support us, donate, because you're not hearing anything about this major fact of how Erdogan really helped grow ISIS inside of that region on the mainstream media. But this is one of the key reasons why I believe this is happening right now. Share this video, subscribe. We're going to have a lot more coming here your way on youtube.com/we-are-change.
We Are Change on YouTube. Go check them out. I do think I have the connection problem. I think it was the connection using Skype. We were reconnected, and I think we have the audio problem fixed, and that's all the little pings you were hearing. Thanks, Vince. And I do have one here from, I believe I had it from CNN.com. Now, this one, attempt coup in Turkey, headline, CNN.com. I'm going to try to prevent this clip from playing. Says military units have attempted an uprising in Turkey. The country's prime minister told a Turkish broadcaster troops have been seen in the streets of Ankara, and there have been reports of jets flying low over the city. And there's a lot of different reports coming out. Reports that they're shutting down air traffic, but FAA, I don't think has anything so far. Prime Minister still claiming that he is in control. We have military taking over state-run TV, claiming martial law. I'm getting some more feed here. So far, it's looking like a military coup, but I don't think it's full-fledged completely yet. But it does look like wherever he's speaking from, it looks like he's in a more secure location. He's not like speaking in front of the flag, or this is a a public announcement type deal. So it's looking like he is losing control. Tanks are rolling in. We don't know quite yet how widespread this is. I have another article here. Give me a second. I wasn't sure what was causing the connection problems, so I was shutting stuff down, but looks like we're okay still. Now we have if it's going to work, come on. We have one here from Alex Jones. Is Turkey coup going to start European civil war? And it's kind. I guess it's kind of important to express, like, when Britain and the Brexit went on, there was a lot of talk about bringing Turkey in to the EU. So I think that's one important thing that needs to be pointed out. Give me a second here. I'm trying to open some more. Okay. We have another one here. Turkish military claims success in coup against government. Part of the military is attempting a coup in Turkey. The country's Prime Minister Binali Yildirim said following reports of military jets and helicopters flying low over Ankara and Istanbul. Jim Roberts tweeted, Turkey coup update, military attempted to seize power from Erdogan, and Turkey military statement, the power in the country has been seized in its entirety. Says here some people took illegal action outside the chain of command. Yildirim told news network NTV, the government's elected by the people remains in charge. The government will only go when the people say so, he added. A military helicopter has reportedly opened fire in the district of Ankara, where the Turkish National Intelligence Organization headquarters is situated. Just heard an explosion. This is a tweet. Balak Shabir, security ejecting us from British Embassy bar in Ankara, Turkey. And another tweet that says, yes, it was very low. And they have a clip here that if you actually play the clip, it'll show how quick it came through. According to Yildirim, Turkish security forces are currently doing what needs to be done to resolve the situation. Shooting is being reported in the Turkish capital, Ankara. The military jets and helicopters seen in the sky above the city. Curfew seems to have been enforced in Istanbul. Army troops asking people to go home. According to reports on Twitter, the authorities have closed the two Bosphorus bridges in Istanbul, where military jets have also been spotted flying. Both Bosphorus bridges, it's a tweet, closed by troops. CNN Turk reports police helicopters over Beyoğlu. Not sure. The reason for the Turkish Air Force taking to the skies late Friday currently remain unclear. Facebook and Twitter services were blocked in Ankara on Friday. RIA Novosti reported. Celine Garrett, Turkish soldiers block both bridges on the Bosphorus and Istanbul, and jets flying low in Ankara. Reason not clear yet. According to local media, all security personnel have been urgently called in to work. Istanbul, Ataturk Airport, a video by Turkish television channel NTV showed tanks stationed at the entrance to Ataturk Airport in Istanbul. Turkish state-run television network TRT has been shut down, Bloomberg reported. Now I don't even know if I want to play this one clip here. Decisions. I'm going to skip that clip. We will cover some more of this as more comes in. I kind of do want to get to some of what I wanted to cover originally. And we also have the Nice attack in France. But that kind of takes me back to this original one from yesterday that I watched, Ron Paul Liberty Report. And I think this is something that needs to be played definitely now with, France, with Turkey, and with a lot of other things going on right now. This is something important. But let's go ahead and dive into this real quick, and then we will cover it afterwards.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, the co-host. Daniel, nice to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good. Our country worries about spreading American exceptionalism. We've talked about that, and of course, there's different ways to look at the word exceptional. Most people who talk about that are talking about forcefully going about the world and teaching them about our wonderful democracy and how we run things here and our banking system and our taxing system, and they sort of think that we are the epitome and we should spread that message. Of course, I think of other things when I want to spread exceptionalism, but I'll tell you here, I found something where we really are number one on, and that is exporting weapons, and just probably something that serves our interests very, very limitedly. I can't believe it serves our interest at all. It serves the interest of the military-industrial complex. But it's not a couple bucks. It's over $40 billion of weapons we send overseas. So we talk about the military-industrial complex, and we'll talk a little bit about this later on, but we usually think, well, we're building F-35s and airplanes we don't need, and we're building up our military and this sort of thing. But here, this is just selling weapons. And you know that a lot of times, it supports the military-industrial complex. And a lot of times these sales are guaranteed, through subsidies and guaranteed loans, export-import bank loans, and all these things. But it's always, with mischief. Though we're so-called selling these weapons, it usually involves the foreign policy. What do you think would happen if I had this authority to wave my magic pen and just strike all those sales? I know what would happen with the lobbyists. But do you think it would hurt us in any manner?
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt us. It would hurt the people that make billions of dollars from it. You know? And this is a classic case, and you've said this over the years. All of the research, all of the prototypes, this is all supported by the taxpayer. It's all socialized, all the costs but then when they're exported overseas, the profits are all privatized, the military-industrial complex is enriched, and they therefore invest money in think tanks and media and all of these sorts of things. They buy television networks and they promote it. So it's a sort of a vicious circle.
You know, they worried after Brexit was passed that, this whole thing would change. And, of course, my concern was, yes, it's a great vote. It represents the people speaking out, but it's going to get real messy. It's just not automatically going to extricate the British from the European Union. But they worried that this would cut back on the British buying weapons. But now you hear story. Don't worry about it, folks. They're still going to be buying. So I don't think Brexit is going to change the sale of weapons any way whatsoever.
And I think we were pondering a few days ago why some neocons were in favor of it and some against. I think the ones in favor of it are hedging that the UK may actually start buying a lot more weapons because they don't feel like they can piggyback on an EU system.
Yeah.
So that's a payoff.
I see that one of the things that is a favorite for export, and we cross paths with the helicopter companies. And I guess there will be a good business for helicopters because it looks like they're going to use helicopters to pass out money, Bernanke's method. But they sell a lot of attack helicopters. What do you think the reason is that they would be so popular, to these various countries? I mean, there are numerous countries, but they seem to really like the attack helicopter.
Well, they can put down a lot of insurrections. Look at some of the places that that the U.S. sells these helicopters are some of the most repressive countries on earth. Look in the Middle East, where our allies, will do anything to put down any kind of uprising or insurrection, even a peaceful one.
Whether it's our budget or this assistance to other countries, it seems like they're always planning and worrying about, well, if the war builds up, we have to be ready to defend ourselves. And I think the one thing that they don't consider is these plans for protecting against war are actually too often leading to the risking a war, the danger of a war, because sometimes people like to use these weapons.
Yeah, and look how U.S. foreign policy actually creates markets for these weapons that then benefit the weapons manufacturers who invest money into influencing U.S. foreign policy. Look at U.S. foreign policy toward Ukraine, for example. If we had not had this antagonistic policy, this regime change policy, we would never have been shipping weapons over there, even under the guise of aid. The U.S. aggressive stance in the Baltics, for example, we're moving tons and tons and tons of heavy equipment there. That's a policy change that benefits the military-industrial complex, which feeds policy change, and so on and so on. It's a huge ripoff.
Well, it's part of the budget, directly and indirectly, on exporting weapons. But, we deal with the military budget all the time, and this is what we want to really emphasize today is who really is behind all of this. And there's certainly a lot of groups that benefit. But we're up around $600 billion, plus other things that they don't count. And it's in the discretionary budget, but it's a huge portion of the discretionary budget. It's more than 50% of the discretionary budget. I think we have a chart that we can put up just to show. And they claim that the discretionary budget is the only place we can cut. Of course, I think the whole budget is a place where we can cut. But nevertheless, this chart, I think, gives us an idea of what's going on.
Look what a big piece of pie the military gets. Not that the others should get more necessarily, but that's just enormous. I don't think people know that.
It's huge, and people are always hear the propaganda, and we'll give us some statistics about what happens when they have information versus propaganda. And I think it seems like, I bring this up frequently, that it seems like we're in the business of refuting propaganda and trying to give people some facts and convince them that there's a better way, and convince them that the propaganda that there's this great need for government to take care of us and run the economy and police the world is just totally unnecessary. So this year, there's a clamor. Of course, the supporters of the military spending, not defense spending, of course, the military spending, is from all quarters. Yeah. We can't expect to get any help from the media. We can't expect to get any help from the leadership of either political party. And even those who profess to be on the peace side of the issues, an Obama-type individual who comes across as not enthusiastic about some of these things, they still spend the money. And where can we expect anything? I can't see how anybody can expect less spending from Hillary.
No.
And for that matter, I don't see anybody on the horizon that will literally cut militarization and military spending as a reason for cutting the budget.
Well, if you look at the recent presidential campaign over the past year or so, there were really, except for two candidates, I would say, that would be Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul. Aside from those two, every single candidate, unless I'm very mistaken, said that the military has been gutted, it has to be rebuilt. Even Hillary is much in favor of, for example, we talked a little bit about this rehabilitation of the nuclear program, $1 trillion.
Yeah.
She's in favor of that, $1 trillion.
There's common knowledge, so-called knowledge, because you hear it all the time, that Ronald Reagan won the Cold War by militarization, build up the military, be strong, be tough and firm with the Soviets, because he forced them to spend more money on the military and he bankrupted that country. Maybe there's a little bit of truth to that, but quite frankly, I don't think that's the major reason the Soviets collapsed. I think it collapsed because it was a failed system, and it was a predictable event. As Mises made, that socialism just doesn't work. So in a way, we're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
We're spending endless amounts of money on the military when we don't have the money, and it may well play a major role in our bankruptcy.
That's such a great point. It just shows the inconsistency of the neocons or their detachment from reality, because the same neocons that would argue that, yes, we spent the Soviets into oblivion are the same ones that would urge us to spend ourselves into oblivion.
Well, there was a Wall Street publication that reported no matter who wins the presidency, defense spending will increase. Of course, once again, I'm cautious. Military spending will increase because I believe sincerely that if we had a different foreign policy, our defense and our borders and all would be much better secured. Our financial system would be better. Everything would be better. But everybody uses defense, and the people get lulled to sleep on this.
Well, that's information, and that's one of the things we wanted to talk about. You always made the point, the difference between defense and military spending, and we have some polls that play that out.
Pew did a poll along with the University of Maryland, I believe, and as recent as April of this year, they found that 34% of the people wanted to decrease it. Thank goodness there was at least 34%. But that was with the routine information that they had. So they went and they modified the questions, and I don't know whether anybody's going to challenge them that they fixed the polling. I don't believe that. Pew wouldn't do that as much as trying to get on his information. But when they gave them factual information about how much we are spending, and they did another poll, 61% of them said decrease the spending. Yeah. It more than doubled with information. So this whole idea that it's politically correct, nobody wants to get up there. And, you saw how I was on the receiving end, that I talked in these terms. Oh, I don't care about America. I wouldn't defend America, and un-American, don't defend the troops and all this sort of thing. But when they get the information, because I am convinced the natural instinct of human beings, except for the very few, is for peace. Yeah. And why would anybody argue against and not promote a system of government that promotes peace and prosperity? And yet, superficially, that means the propaganda machine for the military-industrial complex, very, very powerful. And it's a big task for us to compete with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pew isn't alone. There was a Gallup poll done just this past February. 37% of the people asked said that we spend too little on defense. But 59% said we spend too much. So people do understand, especially when they have the information, and that's why we would probably refer to the military, industrial, congressional media complex.
Yes, there's a lot of people involved, and then you have the intellectuals who get contracts for investigations and development and all these things. So it is really very much big bucks involved. And but there's an end point to this, and I don't think we're quite there. But the end point to a system like this with excessive spending, debt, and inflation printing the money to pay the bills, it comes to an end sometimes as a big surprise. Although things look, people are very happy right now with the stock market and say must be all right. But sometimes, just like in the year when the NASDAQ bubble burst, it was rather I think burst is a good term. Same way in 2008, with the housing bubble, it burst. Some event declares it no longer lasts. So I believe that's where we are today, because I think the markets are so distorted, partially because of this, but partially because of how we finance a system like that. And we finance these special interests and overseas activities that we don't need.
And you often say, when it comes to the financial side, that really cutting taxes is beside the point. The issue is cutting spending. Well, I think in the realm of military spending, it's the same thing. The issue of cutting the military budget is less important than the issue of changing our military policy, changing the idea that we must have global control. Because when you have that policy, the budget will come to fill that need.
Yeah, and if you had a policy where you're not the policeman of the world, all of a sudden you say, well, we don't need this. We don't need to do it. But the big thing would be to curtail in some manner, the lobbyists who run things. The lobbyists right now say they made a statement. They're not too worried about who wins the presidency, even though you can pick something out from what Trump says. They're still not worried. You can find something where he says, we're going to be the biggest and the strongest and I'm going to rebuild it. Yeah. But they say, we're just going to deal with the Congress. Oh, isn't that a good idea? That's where the government should be. The government should be with the people and through the Congress. But this is in a perverse manner. Yeah. I mean, is it the Congress standing up to the courts and standing up to the president, executive orders and all the terrible things that goes on in the administrative courts and all the regulations? No, finally, the Congress is being co-opted by the lobbyists. And what frustrates me is too often some people who are sympathetic with what we're saying and in ways allies, they say, and that's why, Ron, you have to regulate people's, lobby in Congress. Well, I thought we were allowed to petition the Congress. Yeah. It's how they're petitioning the Congress that makes the difference. And yet they insist that we need more laws. No, we need less government. That's what we need.
And, many of these representatives go on to become defense lobbyists, so they have something to protect in the future. I remember one of the very few times I saw you get angry, visibly angry with someone who came in to talk to you. I know it was someone you didn't want to see because you knew what he wanted, but he was a former member, and so you extended the courtesy. And he came in and he tried to strong-arm you into supporting a weapons system that you knew we didn't want, didn't need, and couldn't afford. And you almost literally kicked him out of the office.
Well, probably not, but I can remember the incident very well. And I think the frustration was, I knew the gentleman for a long time, and he knew where I stood. Why would he think? I mean, it was such an insult to me that, oh yeah, I'm a lobbyist now and I can talk him into this. So to me, I took it as a personal insult because he should have known. Most people might not know how strong I felt, but he knew where I stood.
And if the others did that, there wouldn't be a problem. They wouldn't listen.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Obviously, this is an issue that is very, very important, combating the lobbyists and presenting the case for a more peaceful foreign policy, one with non-intervention overseas, pointing out that there's a lot of powerful special interests, including the media and the political system, which is designed to prop up the military-industrial complex because war profiteering is a big deal. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get people in the Congress with this election or the next election where we're finally going to get the majority vote and we will act sensibly and wean ourselves off. The systems like this come to an end with a calamitous type of incident. And that's what we're approaching. That's what we're working toward, unfortunately. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try and make the effort. Maybe a miracle will happen. But what we really need to work for is to present the case to show how we got into this mess and what's available to us, especially since this country and the world has been introduced to the issues and the ideas of liberty. More so, I think the ideas of liberty have been gradually evolving in a positive way over the many, many centuries. It's just that there's a lot of ups and downs. We certainly had a boost in these ideas with our Constitution and our early history. And now we have a setback. But that doesn't mean that we can't rebuild the ideas and the principles of liberty when this thing comes unglued, because it will. It has to be reversed. But like I said, if we could work it out and do it gradually, it could be done. But I think human nature is that the interests are so powerful that they won't allow any cuts in the military. They're right. The lobbyists are right. There will be no cuts in this military spending until the whole thing breaks up. And it might be, a major conflict that we can't handle anymore. It might be a dollar crisis. Who knows what it will be? But this system will end. And that our job is, of course, to offer something different. And it's very simple. It has to do with the concept of individual liberty, which emphasizes the individual, not collective rights, not because you belong to a group. The marketplace that protects private property rights and contracts and sound money. And also a sensible foreign policy that is designed for peace and prosperity. That is, very simply, we ought to mind our own business. We need to come home. We need to talk to people and trade with people and get along with people, but we do not need to militarize the world. We need to just bring our troops home. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube, and RonPaulLibertyReport.com. And the whole disinformation and the war machine, you can see it right now in what's happening here. What happens in a lot of other countries too. But especially with our government and what happens here, and the media, when the media is so in line with the establishment, and then they try to say, it's not us, it's the media, it's kind of, they think you are fools. They don't think you can decipher. And now, there might be people out there that might try to call me a fearmonger. And, we at least I do, and I know a lot of alternative media outlets out there that do the same, is not to try to put some panic into you, make you have some reactionary thing. It's more of a, be knowledgeable about what's going on around you, be aware of what's going on, and be prepared for, what can happen. If you live in an area that has tornadoes a lot, you might want some type of shelter. Kind of, one of those common sense things that it seems to be fading, definitely with more of the people that are in the urban culture. I guess that's the best way to put it. People that are just kind of, go along with the trend, the trendies. They're not truly aware of, where we are, why we're here, how history has shown that things were told, this is a duck, when you should know that it's not a duck. But if you've never seen a duck and you've never took the, time to go research what a duck is, and you just believe that goose is a duck because someone told you that, then you're kind of blindly just going along again with the trend to fit in. And we have a lot of that right now. And it's amazing because of what we've seen back in, 2007 and 2008, and even, throughout, 2012, we've seen a lot of people that were becoming more informed, more aware. And then we see the newer generations that are coming up out of high school and going into college and just coming out of college that are really disconnected with reality. And they are trendsetters. And they might have the right emotion. You know, we all have emotion to what's being done in this country, but to have a knowledge of where that emotion needs to be directed, it's kind of a useless emotion because it will be used by others. And welcome to our new election cycle here. That we would actually have Hillary as the Democratic nominee. That we would actually have Trump as the Republican nominee. Emotion with nowhere to direct it. And we kind of see ourselves on a path that has been kind of beta tested over in Europe. I have an article here from FEE.org, Foundation for Economic Education. The euro is not long for this world. The European Union is reeling under a heavy blow dealt by the United Kingdom's departure, Brexit. More fundamentally, the impact has rocked the very foundations on which the single currency was built. Recall, if you will, the ideas put forth to legitimize the euro's introduction by merging diverse national currencies into a single legal tender in early 1999. According to the crowding theory, the euro was meant to be introduced once there was sufficient economic harmonization or convergence among participating nation states. The alternative was the cornerstone theory, whereby the euro was to compel adopting nation states towards economic and political integration. Neither theory panned out. Rather than growing closer, nation states are drifting apart. The case for a single currency has not been strengthened but weakened. Many countries simply lack the discipline needed to adapt physical and economic policies to the demands of a stable common currency, and several were lured in by a very juicy carrot, a far too lax monetary policy. The European Central Bank policy triggered a colossal credit boom, particularly in countries on the periphery of the Eurozone. These countries went broke when the inevitable bust came. To prevent payment defaults on a grand scale, the ECB has pushed interest rates into negative territory. Listen closely, and one can almost hear those electronic presses humming away in the either printing up piles of digital cash to keep credit flowing. The ECB buys government bonds with newly created euros. This may provide some short-term relief for overstretched debtors, but it wreaks political havoc in the Eurozone. Dragged down by banks, a partial breakup or outright dissolution of the EU has suddenly become a possibility. And where the EU goes, the euro is sure to follow. This puts tremendous pressure on Eurozone banks, which do their business across borders. It also poses some tough questions for investors. What happens to bank deposit, debentures, and bank equities value if the euro puzzle is in pieces. If euro banks start defaulting on their payment obligations, the euro demise could be instantaneous. The ECB has already stepped in to prevent this, showering banks with new credit at astonishingly favorable rates. The ECB is poised to ramp up its balance sheet, potentially bringing it to around 3.9 trillion euros by March 2017. The central bank has since June of 2016 been issuing new credit to banks at minus 0.4% interest, provided they lend the money to consumers and corporates. Negative ECB lending rates help bolster banks' equity capital. This is why the notion that the ECB could push its lending rate even further into the cellar no longer seems so far-fetched. This would compound the pressure on market interest rates. The fact is the ECB is on an epic monetization spree. It has been buying 80 billion euros worth of bonds a month, which could increase the euro-based money supply to around 1.7 trillion by March 2017. This is not the whole story, though. If the ECB starts monetizing debentures issued by banks, the base money supply could gradually rise by another 3.8 trillion euros. The problem really is the Eurozone's outsized banking apparatus, whose balance sheet accounts for 314% of GDP, comparing with just 86% in the United States. And you can read the rest of that at fee.org. And that one is the euro is not long for this world. And then you have what happened in France with this immigrant that decided he was going to drive this box truck. I did see early reports, but I haven't looked to see if they have been confirmed. I believe it came from Fox News that the first report popped up. But it was saying that there were guns and grenades or something in the box truck. And again, I have not seen any more. I do have an update here from Ben Swan about the military coup in Turkey. So let me try to go ahead and pull this up here.
Hey there, Facebook Live, Ben Swan here. Hey there, Facebook Live, Ben Swan here. So a developing situation taking place really across the world from where we are right now. Over in Turkey, there's apparently a military coup that is underway as we speak. Details starting to come in about this, but apparently it started out as a low-level military coup and then kind of grew to an upper level, to the upper echelons of the military. Reports are right now that there are low-flying planes and helicopters literally feet above the ground in major cities across Turkey right now. The airport in Istanbul, the one that was hit by a terror attack just a few weeks ago, right now there are military tanks outside of that airport. Our understanding is that Turkey's President Erdogan, is apparently out of the country right now or on vacation. He's apparently not at the presidential palace there, and so he is away, trying to learn more about exactly how that works. We do understand that there are calls right now through Turkish TV, and by the way, these are some live pictures right now coming in from Turkey. it's important to know that in Turkey, they have a state-run television channel, which essentially means they don't have free media. Military, no, excuse me, not military, but the government controls the media there. What's interesting about that is a few minutes ago, state media in Turkey released a statement saying that they stand in support of the military, which indicates, of course, that the military at least has control now of the state-run media. We also understand that social media right now in Turkey has been shut down at this point, so we're monitoring that as well. You might know that a couple of years ago, Turkey was upset with some things that were out on YouTube and Twitter and actually shut them down for the entire country. Apparently it's happened again, but this time the military in control.
Okay, I'm going to cut that right there. So it seems that the military is becoming in control. I'm trying to see if I can... Trying to get some more information. And what we're trying to do is confirm to what we're seeing is actual footage. You know, we always see during one of these incidents that so much fake stuff gets put out there. Okay, I'm going to keep looking through that. But when we look at what's going on in Europe, what's going on here in America, there's tensions. And again, back to disinformation, we don't know what happens half of the time. We don't know what gets covered up. And frankly, most people don't ask any questions about what they're told. And then when anybody brings up any type of theory that goes against the narrative that's put out by, mainstream media, by governments, it's shot down. It's laughed at. And these are the people that are usually telling you the truth. So, where do we go from here when we see basically the world on fire right now? Do we think that some type of revolution is actually going to help? Or are we just in a situation where the good people have to be ready to step in when all the BS is done? It's just something we need to start asking. Because, well, when you look at everything going on right now, and people that actually are trying to look at logical solutions and being shut down by the main populace, this becomes a fight between wrong and wrong, and the right people need to kind of let those people battle out, because it's really not about us. It's about power grab. And when they're wore out, that's when you step in and put an end to the power grabbing and give freedom back to people. But, you know, we have to try to leave a freer society. And that's why I've always supported, like, you know, whether it be the constitutionalists that are trying to look, the true ones that are looking at, you know, personal rights, personal freedoms, and not shooting down, you know, race, religion, gender, you know, any of that. We need those type of people to, you know, have the support behind them. Okay, I'm trying to bring this up if it'll come up. It might work. It might not. We'll see if it's going to load. Okay. Now, we know Mike Pence has now been chosen to be Donald Trump's VP. And I'm not excited. Yeah, I'm from Indiana. I'm not a huge hater of Pence, personally, for the reason why he's not done anything to harm me. Therefore, you know, I don't, you know, put hate towards that. But I do dislike and think certain things he did were dishonest. Now we have one that I've talked about before. This is one that bugs me till I'll get out. It really, it's something that I think was purposely inflammatory or willfully ignorant of Indiana. And that was the religious freedom bill that he signed to protect business owners and their religious freedom. You know, the whole, you know, should a baker bake a cake have to be forced to bake a cake for a gay couple. The one reason why this bugs me is you have to understand Indiana. I don't know how many states are like this. I know all of them aren't. I don't know how many are. But in Indiana is a right to deny service state. It's also a right to fire state. Meaning you basically don't have to have a reason to hire, fire, or deny service to people. If someone's acting up in your business and you decide to kick them out, you can kick them out. And a lot of the premise around, you know, why some people in the past have not said they haven't liked it is, well, what if they kick you out because you're of color? And it's like, don't shop there. Tell other people don't shop there if that's why you think he did it. If someone is inherently kind of, you can see that he always kicks out, black people or Hispanic people or even white people. If he singles out people, you don't shop there. You make it apparent. Now, the thing about it is, one thing is you don't really have to give a reason. You just tell them, I'm not selling anything to you. I'm not doing that for you. I've made the choice that I do not want to conduct business with you. And so on. So, you didn't need that bill signed. That's why I say it was either, something that they did to, purposely kind of give a jab to the left, or if it was done because they really didn't even know the laws here in Indiana. Same with firing someone. You don't really need a reason. Now, when you become a incorporate your business, and then you start growing, then your lawyers tell you, oh, you should make sure you had these people wrote up that they've had more infractions, and make sure you have a paper trail just to cover your butt. Well, that's kind of what lawyers say no matter what state you're in. Again, you really don't need a reason because it's the right to fire state. You just have to say you no longer need that person. That's it. Hear from Gun Owners of America, Governor Mike Pence on Second Amendment. Oh yeah, this should be good. And it was originally from Daily Caller, so let me go ahead and pull it up on Daily Caller. Okay. Again, Daily Caller. Governor Mike Pence on Second Amendment. Originally seen it over at Gun Owners. According to many media reports, Indiana Governor Mike Pence has been chosen by presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump to be his running mate. Pence served 12 years as a member of the House of Representatives before winning the 2012 Indiana gubernatorial election. Excuse me. Trump's record on the Second Amendment includes support in 2000 for the ban on so-called assault rifles that Bill Clinton pushed through in 94. This had been a weakness for Trump in the primary. Oh, it's going to be a weakness too, because Pence supported that, but that wouldn't have been what people in Indiana want, because there's a lot of guns in Indiana. It says here, according to many reports, Indiana Governor Mike Pence has been chosen. How did I get back up there? Governor Pence has been very strong on Second Amendment issues. In 2005, he voted to pass the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which halted lawsuits against firearm manufacturers. Gun grabbers had sought to hold firearm manufacturers financially responsible for the criminal misuse of firearms, and used the threat of the lawsuit to force through policies that had been rejected by state legislators and Congress. Then Representative Pence also supported efforts to roll back Washington, D.C.'s numerous laws to pass concealed carry reciprocatory to allow veterans to register war trophies from overseas, to remove antiquity laws governing the sale of firearms, or antiquated laws governing the sale of firearms. I was like, what? That didn't sound right. And to commend the NRA's Eddie Eagle firearms safety program. Giving up his congressional seat to run for governor, Pence continued his strong pro-Second Amendment track record after winning the governorship, including signing SB 229 in 2014, which not only ended the risk of gun owners becoming accidental felons and prohibiting the use of tax dollars for gun buybacks. As governor of Indiana, Pence signed pro-hunting legislation as well. In the wake of the terrorist attack on the Navy recruiting station in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Governor Pence allowed National Guard personnel to carry firearms for personal protection. Pence told Indiana lawmakers in the 2016 State of the State speech in front of the Indiana legislature. In the wake of the terrorist attack on a recruiting station in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I'm proud to say that Indiana was among the first states to allow our National Guard to carry firearms at all recruiting stations. Hoosiers know firearms in the hands of law-abiding citizens, including our National Guard, makes our communities more safe, not less safe. Indiana will always defend the right to keep and bear arms. Governor Pence routinely received A and A+ ratings from the NRA, or the NRA Political Victory Fund, in his campaigns. The past May, he addressed the NRA ILA Leadership Forum during the NRA annual meeting in Louisville, Kentucky. He also addressed the NRA's celebration of American values in 2010. If personal or our policy, then Donald Trump has sent a very strong signal in support of the Second Amendment with the selection of Governor Pence. I think he's still going to have that assault rifle ban thing kind of hovering over him. I have one here from AMTV, Steve Forbes. The election is for Trump's to lose. Is for Trump's to lose. So, let me see if we got enough time to even play this. Yeah, we got time. I want to go ahead and play this. Steve Forbes.
Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. I'm with Steve Forbes. Steve, thank you so much for joining us and sitting down with AMTV this morning.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
We watched you speak yesterday. Great speech.
Thank you.
Talked a little bit about your book, Reviving America. In it, you talk about reforming the Federal Reserve. What do you mean by that?
Having a stable dollar again, like 60 minutes in an hour, 12 inches in a foot. The dollar should have a stable value. The Fed should cease trying to control the economy a la the Soviet Union through manipulating interest rates. Let borrowers and lenders set the price of money. And in terms of the Fed's bloated portfolio, where it's seized with no permission, $3 trillion of assets, run that portfolio down. When a bond matures, don't renew it. Let the money go back into the lending system to where it can be put to productive use rather than subsidizing government.
Now, you've talked a lot about economic consequences of the policies at the Federal Reserve, 0% interest rates. We are 8 years roughly into the business cycle. The S&P 500 is hitting new all-time highs. What do you think the consequences are of this funny money policy, quantitative easing to infinity, artificial stimulus? I mean, are things going to get bad in America, in your opinion?
Well, things are not good for America in terms of small business creation, new business creation. You look at flows of credit to small and new businesses and households, which are the real dynamic actors in the economy, so to speak. They're being starved of credit. So, yes, the market's doing well because big companies are doing well, like they do in Europe. But for the dynamism that you need for the present and for the future, this is not a good thing. This is like eating your feed corn.
Absolutely. Now, we saw you on CNN recently. You said, I believe, quote, that you support the GOP presumptive nominee, Donald Trump. Is that an official endorsement?
I said I would support the nominee, and I'll support the nominee.
Okay, fair enough. Do you think he can win? If Donald Trump is the nominee coming up to the convention here next week, can he win? Is he capable of beating Hillary Rodham Clinton?
Really, the question is, will Trump blow it? This election is for Trumps to lose. Most people don't want a third term. Most people don't want a continuation of what's happened in the last decade. And so if Trump doesn't make mistakes, runs a good campaign, comes out with some good policy statements, he will win. Hillary Clinton was severely damaged, even though that wasn't the intent by the FBI and the Justice Department rigging that email investigation so that she didn't get indicted as any other human being would have been.
Glad you brought that up because we have a very libertarian, liberty-oriented audience. And there's a lot of anger that Hillary Clinton was able to get away with criminal activity. You know, I'm a regular guy. If I committed, that activity, they'd prosecute me. If I was found guilty in a court of law, I'd potentially go to jail. I couldn't get away with it. We saw James Comey, the director of the FBI, basically not do anything and waver around the whole idea that, well, we don't think she had intent. She was just negligent, so we're not going to prosecute, even though she built a private email server, had a major infrastructure set up.
Two things on that. One is Comey did not have to make a statement. His task was to investigate. That report should have gone to the Attorney General to make the decision whether you prosecute or not. So that's part of why people think it's a rigged system. He, in effect, said, I don't think there's anything here, whereas anybody who read that report would have said, wow, there's an indictment, several indictments here. As for intent, she was told, contrary to what she said, she lied on this too, as so many other things she's done on. She lied about the warnings from the State Department that this was not the right thing to do. So what they call mens rea in law, intent, goes by the boards. She was told, period.
Do you think the meeting with Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch in Phoenix, is our neck of the woods, do you think that was intentional? I kind of feel that they put that out to the media for a reason, to relieve her from basically any accountability of potentially prosecuting or bringing charges, as I think is her job to do, because she specifically said, I'm going to defer to the FBI's judgment, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, whether or not they're going to prosecute or bring charges against Hillary. You think anything fishy was going on with that?
Well, it would be one thing if you were running through the airport and ran into each other. Quite another having airplanes meet on a runway and officials clearing the way, no cameras, no cell phones and things like that. So it was not a coincidence. As they used to say in the Soviet Union, there are no coincidences, comrade. And that's what happened here. I think he, in effect, ambushed her. He didn't have to say anything. Just his presence would remind her. He appointed her in 1999. He started her career trajectory that took her to the top of the Justice Department. And so, yes, it's part of the rigged verdict. Like they used to count votes or still count votes in Chicago. It's not what it should have been.
Yeah. Should Hillary Clinton be in jail? What are your thoughts?
Well, if she, at the most, if she had a terrific Clarence Darrow type of lawyer, she would have ankle bracelets.
At the very least. Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. So Donald Trump, he said it's his election to lose, basically. He's going to announce, at least this is what we've been hearing, as soon as tomorrow, who the VP pick is. Who do you think he should pick? Newt's been a standout. I've looked at some preliminary polling. The Drudge Report, I think, indicated over 50% of just that loose poll was in favoring Newt Gingrich. Do you think he's a good option, or do you think it should be somebody else?
Well, Donald Trump never goes according to script. So the fact that Newt's at the top of the list almost guarantees it won't happen.
Probably. Yeah, that's an excellent point, actually.
And it could be Mike Pence, who was like the dark horse rushing up in a horse race, where others got tired out. He zooms by. And it could be somebody, he may just choose somebody who's not on his supposed short list. That's why people listening to Donald, even if they're not going to vote for him, he is always entertaining.
Very entertaining. I think he took a lot of people by surprise, right? I mean, 12 months ago, people were like, Donald Trump, no way he's going to be the presumptive nominee, but the political incorrectness. And I think that's what America wants. I mean, they want real opinion. Do you think Trump, I'm assuming that you two know each other?
Yes.
Are you good friends?
I've known Donald Trump for 30 years, back when he burst upon the New York real estate scene in the 1980s. And he's always taken us to task at Forbes each year about the estimation of his wealth. He always has it 2 to 3 times what we have it.
Sure.
So we go through that dance each year. And but in terms of the political correctness, people think that is not just corrosive, but as somebody pointed out, they don't like the condescension that comes with it. That you peons don't know what's good for you. And even though we elites have wrecked the economy for a decade, shut up and you're always guilty. You're always guilty.
Now, knowing Trump, because he's so larger than life, he's this character. You're fired. Donald. Everyone knows him from the. Is that how he really is in person, as a friend, knowing him? Is he the same guy in real life?
Well, Donald Trump, as they like to say, is the only person who fired people who didn't work for him. And but in terms of he can be very charming. He can combine good cop, bad cop in one if he's got
smart. I think.
Oh, no question about it. And two things helped him. One is people already knew him. He had higher name recognition than anybody else, including Jeb Bush, by a wide margin. We'd seen him on TV in a role as an authoritative figure. Very critical. People trying to win his favor because he was the guru. Then, in terms of the political incorrectness, people were sick of that, and they went with it. And because they felt they knew him, when the criticisms came, they had a point of reference, whereas most other candidates, they're not that well known, except in a very, very vague way. So Trump had that advantage. The other big advantage he had was that he built buildings.
Something real.
Politicians make speeches. Whatever you say about them, buildings rose up. That just doesn't happen. Somebody has to make it happen. So people figure out, maybe this, maybe that, but the buildings rose up. The courses got built.
Sure. And I think Americans can relate to that. Even though Donald Trump's very...
And as you say, even more than software, buildings you can touch. They're tangible. You see them.
Absolutely. So it seems like a lot of the GOP party doesn't like Trump, right? Jeb Bush, for example, will not endorse him, will not support him. And he says he's not going to vote for Hillary, but by not supporting and endorsing Donald Trump, he's essentially voting for Hillary Clinton, at least in a lot of people's minds, or half a vote, right? So, I mean, what do you think about why is the GOP party so reluctant to endorse the people's choice? I mean, this is a representative government. I mean, what are your thoughts? Is that the right thing to do?
Well, people have very serious questions about his principles, his philosophy, his consistency, his temperament. That's what he's got to, those doubts he has to deal with in the campaign. And for example, I don't agree with him on a 45% sales tax on imports. I think that would be a disaster. So I have very real reservations about that. In terms of immigration, we're not going to deport 11 million people.
So I wanted to ask you that. Do you think if he becomes president, will he build a wall? I mean, because he better, because that's what he's promised Americans. Is that even possible? And you said he's not going to deport, 13 million plus? Is that even reasonable?
Well, he's now sort of backing off on the deportation. and which everyone knew from the get-go. But in terms of the wall, he will do something, but he's got to change the focus. And people, a lot of his supporters, don't really expect a big wall to be built. They expect things to be done. Areas have more officials there, more helicopters, more technology, and so they expect more action. But building, the Israelis built walls, but that was not on this scale in terms of a specific area they're trying to keep terrorists out, be able to control the flow of people. So, and a lot of his supporters, they say, well, they don't expect the whole thing to be built, but they get his intent that he's going to do something on immigration. That's the key thing. Not the specific remedy, but it's going to be different than what we had before.
Geopolitical tensions seem to be rising around the world, whether or not you look at Russia or China, and you see a lot of this economic movement with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is a counterpoint to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, long dominated by the West. Question being, do you think Donald Trump would be a good wartime president? Does he have the strength, knowledge, know-how, experience to lead a nation during a crisis and potentially a global war, which people think this stuff can't happen, but history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it has a tendency to rhyme. What are your thoughts on his ability to lead in an environment like that if the worst case scenario played out in the future?
Well, one of the things he has to deal with are doubts about temperament. Does he have the temperament for the job? Everyone knows crises are going to come up that no one anticipated. No one anticipated in 2000 we'd have 9/11 and crisis since then. So the question is, does this person have the temperament to deal with it? That's one of the things he has to deal with. That's why, just as a starter, releasing those 11 names of potential Supreme Court justices, they all passed muster. These were people of substance. And his VP pick, same thing. Well, that allayed doubts. He may come up with other names of the kinds of people he wants around him as a team. Those things are going to play more critical importance because he's new. He's thrown a lot of balls in the air. He's shot off a lot of cannons. And so people want reassurance that when it comes to big decisions, they'll be deliberate, there'll be a method, and you have people there who have had experience in dealing with these things, so he'll come up with a considered decision. And if he does that, he's going to be very hard to stop. Even though his negatives are higher than those of Hillary Clinton, they're not yet frozen. Her negatives are now frozen. It's going to be very hard for her to chip away, which is why they're just going to go after Donald Trump. There's no way that people are going to say, even though she lied about the emails, she's really a trustworthy person. That's gone.
So really is a third term of Barack Obama, right? I mean, would you agree with that?
Well, that's the thing. People don't want a third term. So that's why it's for Trump's to lose.
Now, there's been a lot of talk. I really think it's propelled by the mainstream media, but there's kind of this divide and conquer with race relations right now. Of course, we've had 2 tragic shootings of young African-American men. They're really kind of putting this race narrative out to the public, which is interesting. At the same time, Hillary Clinton had a spotlight on her for only about 24 hours regarding the FBI Director Comey investigation. Said they just quickly moved away from it. But the question being, do you think that racism exists in America today? You really think that's a problem? Why are people so angry? Why is there all this divisiveness right now in American politics? I mean, what's your take on it?
The basic divisiveness and anger comes from a stagnant economy. People feeling that we can't get out of the rut. And as we discuss in our book, Reviving America, when you have an unstable currency, social tensions rise because social trust is undermined. And as Keynes said, not 1 in a million will understand what is going on. Money is how we deal with strangers. Money is based on trust. It has no intrinsic value. Pieces of paper, lips on a computer, token coins. And when that trust is undermined, it reverberates throughout society. And so I think this is part of it. If you look at the facts, as Larry Elder did at this conference yesterday, he pointed out that in the last 40 years, shootings of blacks by police are down 75%.
And that's a fact.
That's fact. And so the narratives, I think, reflect not facts so much as frustration. Why aren't things moving? And also, it's because they're not facing up. Why are some people not having a better opportunity to get ahead? Well, if you start dealing with that, you're going to have to deal with the teachers' union. Don't want to do it. You have to start dealing with culture. Government can't do it. That's something people have to do. So there are issues that people don't want to discuss or touch for political reasons. The economy's not going anywhere with the vigor that it should. You look around the world, things seem to be falling apart. I mean, Russia is now harassing our diplomats, not only in Russia, but in Europe. That's outrageous. And Kerry says, I'm going to bring that up with the Russians. No.
I think there was an NBC executive, there was some kind of media executive that was held in Moscow, too, I think, for several hours and interrogated.
It's all our contempt for Barack Obama. Chinese, even though they got an adverse ruling on the South China Sea. No, you don't own that. Your claims are flimsy. China feels that it can go ahead. And so what I think upsets people, and Hillary Clinton can't get around it, she headed up the foreign policy ship for 4 years, is the world is falling apart and the U.S. is not respected. Not in a Tarzan sense, but it's not seen as a serious player.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, a lot of people criticize Vladimir Putin, for example, Russia, and I think it's fair to criticize him, but he's also respected. I mean, his people, if you believe the polls, I mean, he's got tremendous support, at least, you know, some of the polling. But so how do we reinstill that respect? Does it come through leadership, through potentially, you know?
Well, the conclusion's very simple. Just look at what Reagan did in terms of a change of spirit. Reform, getting the economy moving. This country has a massive amount of entrepreneurial potential waiting to be released. People start to see this economy moving, us doing some big things like the tax code. The world's going to take note. America's back in business again. That changes the whole temperament around the world. We make it very clear we're not going to be pushed out of the China Sea. We're going to have flyovers of those man-made islands. We're going to have maneuvers with the Philippines and others in those waters because they're international waters. And in Europe, you start with, you make it very clear. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia are part of NATO. You attack those countries, you're attacking the U.S., period. Case closed. Don't even think of it. As for Ukraine, okay, Ukraine's not going to become part of NATO, but we can provide them starting with the currency board. You get a stable currency in Ukraine, that economy starts to come back. That puts more pressure on the Russians. There's a variety of things that can be done where people will say it's a different world, more positive world.
Sure, I think so. What is your take on the Ukraine intervention? Do you think that was just Putin that was wielding his force in that area? You think the United States is responsible in that part of the world for kind of agitating, the Russian bear, as the media will call it?
Well, the agitation didn't come from the U.S. or Europe so much as it did from Ukraine. Ukrainians do not want to be a subsidiary, a satellite of Moscow. And so that's, and Putin thought he had paid off $15 billion cost the previous president, thought he had secured Ukraine. And then suddenly it slipped from his fingers. And that's why he started to do what he did. So we make it clear, Ukraine's not going to become part of NATO. Finland isn't part of NATO, but it's part of the EU. Austria is not part of NATO, but it's considered part of Europe. Ukraine can have more trade relations with Europe, more trade relations with the rest of the world, as well as with Russia, since Russia's right next door. But so you can make it clear it's not going to be a bone of contention or a big meat of contention. It's a big place in terms of power politics. But it's also not going to be occupied by a foreign power.
What is your take on Middle East politics?
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. We'll cover some of the Middle East in another broadcast, because I do want to get back into the Middle East other than just, what's going on in Turkey. But this will have implications on what goes on in the Middle East, too. Good reason to do it later. So, now with the whole election with Trump, I think you do see a potential, which I think will also pee off a lot of his original supporters, but you will see a shift in how he carries himself. Definitely with Mike Pence, which is what I would say a polished politician. He's really to the point, and you're stereotypical, and I think a lot of that you'll see in Trump come, after the convention. Now, when we look at this election, I really think that we are going to still see, even if we get Trump, we're going to see a lot of the same internal policies going on. I think a lot of national policy might change. In what way, I have no clue. A lot of people suspect that we will actually start becoming closer with Russia. And I really think that depends on our relationship with other European countries, too. I've heard talk about more relationship with Britain and less with the EU and more with Russia. I really don't know where that would even head. Because, again, we really don't know the truth. That's the thing when we look at the policies, a lot of these people, what we're seeing is they really don't have any public policies that they're letting out. They come up with these, basic talking points, but they really don't come down to, I will do this, I will do this. I think we should talk with Britain. What you think, or we're going to if you're president. Oh, well, we got to look at the circumstance. What circumstance? You either trade with someone or you don't. Are you going to do that unless they, do they have to be a part of the EU? Should we have these trade deals? Or should we not make a trade policy? That's the thing. Trade deals are not good at all. No trade deal. Trade policy. You come out with a policy. You tell the world, this is the policy. This is how we're doing things. We invite you all to join, or you don't have to. Policy. But no, we have to have trade deals, which exclude other countries, come with, hidden attachments, just like our bills in Congress do. Now, I do want to see what we have going on here. Try to see what news is still coming out of Turkey. See if I can get anything. Sorry, guys. Just trying to see what we have coming out. Pulling up some ones from a few different sources here. Okay, I have something here out of RT. At least 17 policemen killed in Ankara helicopter attack, reports. At least 17 policemen have been killed in attack on Gabasi Special Operations Headquarters in Ankara as a helicopter fired on their position. Anadolu agency reported. So, that out of RT. Let's see if they have any more. I have here out of offgridsurvival.com. Military coup in Turkey. Martial law declared. People take to the streets. Turkey army officers have seized power in Turkey and have declared a state of martial law. Military equipment has been moved into the capital and tanks are blocking roads throughout Istanbul in an attempt to overthrow the Islamic government. According to local reports, the Turkish army has seized strategic locations throughout the capital in an effort to overthrow Islamic President Erdogan. In a statement sent via Facebook Live to local media, President Erdogan urged his Islamic followers to take to the streets and oppose the military takeover. Moments after the coup started, followers of Erdogan immediately cut access to media channels throughout the country. Access to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube were cut off, so very few on the ground reports are making their way out of the country. A statement from the military published in Turkish media said the coup aimed to reinstall the constitutional order, democracy, human rights, and freedoms to ensure that the rule of law once again reigns in the country and the law in order to be reinstated. The little that has leaked out of the area shows the military clashing with Erdogan supporters, both exchanging gunfire throughout the capital. And there's reports that the helicopter might be firing on protesters, which would more than likely be Erdogan supporters. And then we have one here out of RT. Ankara chaos, all-out war with helicopters, fighter jets, tanks, casualties reported. A Turkish F-16 fighter jet has reportedly shot down a military helicopter used by the pro-coup faction of the Turkish army, local broadcaster NTV reported. As reports suggested, the capital of Ankara descended into chaotic clashes involving civilians and military. A military helicopter was spotted opening fire above Ankara, Reuters reports citing witnesses. Other reports claim that a loud explosion occurred at the headquarters of the state broadcaster TRT. Multiple reports of explosions and shootings are coming out of Ankara, with some stating that at least 4 explosions were heard. Tanks are opening fire around the Turkish parliament building, Press TV reports. Huge explosions rocked Turkey capital just minutes ago. Turkish-based journalist Diego Capello has tweeted that shots were fired near the parliament building in Ankara. Images from Ankara show heavy smoke rising over the skyline. A Reuters eyewitness reported hearing gunfire in Istanbul airport. Military helicopters began to fire at National Intelligence Agency headquarters. And basically, some more reports. It's, I think, going to be a pretty difficult one. We are seeing different factions. It's going to probably be a bloody takeover. And it's hard to get any reports out when, hey, they shut off all media. And Kerry and Obama are currently talking about the situation unfolding in Turkey. And if I remember right, Obama is a pro Erdogan supporter. And here it says, and this is coming from a president that has supported these, well, when the people stand up, we got to support the rebels in Syria. We got to support the rebels in Ukraine. Oh, well, we got to support the elected government here in Turkey. It says here out of Fox News, breaking news update, 17 police officers were reportedly killed in a helicopter attack on police headquarters in Ankara, Turkey during a military coup. President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry have also spoken and agreed that all parties in Turkey should support the democratically elected government of Turkey. Isn't that nice? We support overthrowing. Oh, no, not you. Not you. You can't overthrow your government. We supported those ones, but those are different because, well, we didn't like those people. When population and stuff starts feeling that their government doesn't support them or doing things that are illegal, do you expect them not to stand up? Just wondering. Do you expect them not to? Where their breaking point is can vary from country to country, culture to culture, even cultures within America. There's going to be certain places that people are going to be more willing to stand up because they feel like they've been, beat up too long. Again, that goes back to the beginning of the broadcast, talking about playing off the emotions. Now, a lot of these people that they're emotional, but they don't have the knowledge of how they got where they are and why they are the way they are pretty influenced by others to hate the wrong things and the wrong people. And, you know, I know older black people that look at this, you know, Black Lives Matter, and they say, you know, they hear racism way too much now. They said, you know, I grew up with racism. They don't know what racism is. They call everything racism. You know, I'm not a black person. I didn't grow up then. So, you know, I have to look at everybody's argument, and it just seems like, again, their emotions are being manipulated. And Democrat Greg here in Indiana that was going to run against Pence lashes out. Well, Democrat Greg has also supported a lot of stuff that most Hoosiers won't agree with. Now, whether he can get the Democrat-controlled capital and some of the bigger cities, we'll see. Okay. Well, we are coming up to the end of the broadcast. Let me try to get to these. Last articles, maybe. Come on, come on, come on. Now, I got this one from copblock.org. I don't usually read a lot of articles from Copblock. But copblock.org, man jailed for a month over soap receives $195,000 settlement. Oh, yeah. Pennsylvania taxpayers are on the hook after a Brooklyn, New York man claimed he was wrongfully jailed for almost a month because a roadside drug test misidentified soap as cocaine. Alexander Bernstein, 33, was a passenger in a rented Mercedes-Benz being driven by an Annandale cruise when Pennsylvania state troopers pulled them over on Interstate 78 in South Whitehall Township for speeding and riding on a dividing line in November 2013. According to police reports, the two were charged with possession with intent to deliver cocaine, possession of cocaine conspiracy, and possession of drug paraphernalia after a search of the vehicle produced two brick-sized packages covered in plastic and tape. Cruz told the troopers, identified as Nicholas Goldsmith and Justin Julius, that the packages contained homemade soap for her sister, whom she was traveling to visit in Florida. But a lawsuit filed by Bernstein claimed that the officers insisted they contained a controlled substance of some kind. The troopers also said that they found a small amount of marijuana in Cruz's bra, and the duo were taken to state police barracks. Bernstein was held for 29 days in Lake County Prison until his bail was reduced. On the day a preliminary hearing was scheduled, police ended up dropping all charges against the two, but not before Bernstein was required to pay more than $32,000 in bail and court costs. He also had to pay a defense attorney and fees to have the arrest expunged from his record. The lawsuit suggested that the field test may have been defective because it produced two separate false positive results. Bernstein also filed a federal lawsuit against the California-based company that made the test, Safariland LLC. The claim made in that the suit have also now been settle for an undisclosed amount. The suit against the Pennsylvania state trooper claimed that while Bernstein was locked up, he lost his job, his apartment, and his possessions, which made him destitute and homeless. Lab tests would later confirm that the alleged cocaine was in fact soap. The state police agreed to settle the lawsuit for $195,000. Neither they nor state attorneys have offered any comment about the case or the validity of the roadside drug tests, which have a dubious history of putting innocent people behind bars. According to a ProPublica investigation released last week, 100,000 people across the country plead guilty each year to drug possession charges that are based solely on unreliable field tests that have changed little since the 1970s. The investigation revealed that even the most modest of error rates could produce thousands of wrongful convictions, especially when considering that the test can produce false positives for a variety of reasons. The investigation says the field tests seem simple, but a lot can go wrong. Some tests use a single tube of a chemical called cobalt disinate, which turns blue when it's exposed to cocaine, but cobalt also turns blue when it's exposed to more than 80 other compounds, including methadone, certain acne medications, and several common household cleaners. Other tests use 3 tubes, which the officer can break in a specific order to rule out everything but the drug in question. But if the officer breaks the tubes in the wrong order, that too can invalidate the results. The environment can also present problems. Cold weather slows the color development. Heat spreads it up, or sometimes perverts a color reaction from taking place at all. Poor lighting on the street, flashing police lights, sun glare, street lamps often prevents officers from making the fine distinction that can make the difference between arrest and a release. So, this has been coming out more and more about the field tests for drugs are really false. They mess up way too much. We are at the end of the broadcast. I want everybody to stay tuned in here at ucy.tv for all the great broadcasts coming up after this. Also, go to ucy.tv, scroll down to the bottom. There's an Amazon button. Click that Amazon button, takes you to Amazon store. You get the same great prices, same great shipping rate. At the same time, UCY gets a little kickback to help cover operating costs. And don't forget to go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot. It'll take you to My Patriot Supply. And again, same great deal, same great shipping rate. And at the same time, we get a little kickback to cover our operating costs on this. And when you see all the turmoil in the country, in the world, and kind of where we're headed, we have to just take even the littlest baby steps to prepare for. It can be a natural disaster, a foreign disaster. You never know what can happen, but it's up to you to take the steps to prepare to keep you and your family safe. Again, antityrannynews.com/mypatriot and ucy.tv, the Amazon button down at the bottom. Stay tuned here on ucy.tv for all the great broadcasts coming up after this. Thank you for tuning in. Catch you this coming Wednesday. Take care. Have a great weekend.
This is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening to UCY.TV.